Down for a few minutes. Thank you.
Use your phone.
On behalf of my mother, Evelyn, sisters Kim and Nicole, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for coming to pray for and remember our father. The outpouring of love and support that has been shown over the last week has been incredible. And if I told Dad how many people were here today, he'd say, "No kidding." It has been humbling to hear the stories from family, friends, and people we didn't even know of how our dad touched their lives. He was larger than life and was the center of our family. With the recent passing of our Aunt Mondo, someone told us at her funeral that the last gift a person gives us is getting everyone together. My dad thought it was a beautiful saying and must have repeated it 100 times. It's bittersweet to have everyone here, but also so touching. If he were here right now, Dad would be on the edge of his seat, mouth open, with tears running down his face, because his number one fear was public speaking. And he was impressed whenever any of his kids spoke. He'd also tell me to be sure to be loud and clear. Dad was so full of life, and the only thing he loved more in this life was his wife, kids, and family. Dad was selfless from day one. Even before starting his own family, he left Greece to check on his sister, who was in the US, and to make money for the dowry for his two sisters in Greece. But working here and finding his niche wasn't always easy. He had quite a few jobs, which some of you may not have known. The jobs of Tyrone Adams included busboy, shoe salesman, dishwasher, waiter, onion and potato peeler, ice cream scooper, dance instructor, and factory worker. The factory job only lasted one day, and he hated it so much he never even went back for his paycheck. He often laughed about how ill-suited he was for the steel-toed boots they had provided. Dad finally settled into a role in real estate, which he loved. He started off as an agent and eventually bought his own properties. He was fascinated by the real estate market and loved the thrill of buying and selling. He loved to drive around the neighborhood in Chicago and tell me about all the buildings he had bought and sold and all the deals he made. In fact, just when we thought we knew all of his past real estate moves, we were proven wrong. When we were at the cemetery, we were told the balance due is zero, because 15 years ago, my dad purchased 8 plots side by side so we could all be together. Controlling in real estate until the very end, he also prepaid for the miscellaneous charges of the day and paid a premium that would cover any overtime charges in case it was a holiday or a weekend. And here we are on a Saturday. I'm sure somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew even this was a good real estate deal. Of course, we were told that the plots had now tripled, which adds humor to the story of our lives over the past week. In our family, love was expressed through food. Anyone who came into our house was stuffed to the gills by the time they left. Dad was a grill master who was best known for his tomato salads, lamb chops, steaks, and sausage served only in Wisconsin. If you ever had dinner at our house, you may have noticed that Dad would come up to you as you were only halfway done with your lamb chop to put another one on your plate without even asking you if you wanted it. He would then ask if the meat was to your likeness. He was also very adamant that you would eat them while it's hot. Once you started your second lamb chop was when the fruit, his only version of dessert, was served. Oddly enough, a few years ago, while I was at my dad's office, he called me into the back with something very important to tell me. He opened a drawer and said, "If something ever happens to me, this is the number for the meat man." Just so everyone knows, earlier this week, I did go to the office and secured that number. Dad loved food because it was a means by which he could have conversation and tell stories about growing up in the Horio, his village, or telling us the latest real estate deal. Dad had such a zest for life. He was always upbeat, had a smile on his face, and loved talking to people. Whenever he would answer the phone, Dad would sound as though he hadn't talked to the person in ages. An enthusiastic, "Hi Kukla," or "I don't believe it." were often his greetings. Two people that have been such an important part of my dad's life are my brother-in-law Bill and my wife Anne Marie. Bill has always fit right in with our family and had a great relationship with my dad. He loved you as another son. On countless summer nights in Wisconsin, Bill and my dad would play tabli, which is backgammon, after a day of golfing together. The conversations over a glass of whiskey and glass of wine included everything from stories about growing up to things going on in the world. As many of you know, Dad's nighttime routine was to stand in the garage with a glass of wine and a cigarette and talk on the phone. Bill bought materials and was planning to build a shelf in the garage where Dad could keep the wine as he talked on the phone. He never got the chance to see the shelf, but I know he would have gotten a kick out of it, knowing that you did that for him. Bill, you've been a constant in this family, and Dad was so happy that Kim found someone who loved her almost as much as he did. Anne-Marie, your relationship with my dad was really special. From day one, you always got my dad, and that was so important to me. You made it so clear to our parents that our doors were always open, and my dad took full advantage of that. Because of this, he was able to spend so much time with us and his grandkids. You gave him his namesake, Triffin, and I will always have memories of my dad with my kids. Anne-Marie has amazed us over the past week and a half, especially when I was in Greece. I was told she kept our family together while I was gone, something for which my dad would have been so grateful. She was amazing the night we got the phone call. She did everything. She packed my bag, drove me to the airport, booked my ticket. As my dad would have said, she's a very capable individual. He loved your quick wit and shared your love for life and truly loved you as another daughter. In recent years, Dad was so proud to add the title of Papou to his resume. Evelyn, Evan, and Triffin had Dad wrapped around their fingers. It was completely normal for Papou to come over at 8 p.m. to deliver a pound of feta for one of his grandkids. All three are now cheese snobs and know the difference between feta and the generic string cheese, thanks to their Papou. They also had an appreciation for carbuzi, peponi, and carassia. There was nothing he wouldn't do for them, and they loved him more than anything. Even after a long day at the office dealing with tenants, he always stopped by to see his grandchildren. We often got aggravated that he would overspoil them. He would just look at us and say, "I don't care, I'm the Papou." Dad's relationship with his kids was unparalleled. There was nothing he wouldn't do for us. My dad always called me Buddy Buddy. He was my hero and the best role model for a father and husband I could have hoped for. It was through his office that I was able to have a special relationship with my dad as he taught me the ropes of real estate. I was so fortunate to learn the business that he built. I truly loved working side by side with him for all those years and will miss being with him. He taught me everything I know about business and the art of negotiation. The best compliment anyone has ever given me was when I bought a car a few years ago from the same salesman that my dad had dealt with. And while we were going back and forth, he said, "You're just like your dad." Dad always had a special relationship with his girls. Kim has always been the spitting image of Dad. She picked up on his business acumen from a young age, and he was so proud that she was able to go into real estate, but on a much larger scale. He was so impressed, but also humbled, to know that Kim would oftentimes get his thoughts on whether or not to buy a specific property. Kim is quick on her feet, but by her own admission, not always the most organized. He'd tell me, "Gimme, I don't know how she does it." This week, Kim found a nice surprise in our parents' refrigerator. Before leaving for Greece, my dad roasted tomatoes. Kim opened the fridge this week and found a jar of tomatoes that said Kim. Even before he left for vacation, he wanted to be sure that Kim had her tomatoes. While Kim and I absolutely hate to admit it, we both know that Nicole was Dad's favorite. Nicole was probably shaking her head, but deep down I know you know it's true. As English wasn't Dad's first language, he was so impressed by Nicole's vocabulary. Nicole, she knows all the words. Whenever a birthday or holiday came around, Nicole would give Dad the most thoughtful, well-written cards. Without fail, he would cry each time he read them. While Kim and I have inherited Dad's negotiating and business skills, Nicole took after his softer side. She has always been the most rational of the three of us and held such a place in Dad's heart. And just like Kim, Dad would have done anything for her. This past summer, Nicole was taking the train to Wisconsin from Chicago, and I told him I would pick her up. He wouldn't let me, and got aggravated when I pushed it. He absolutely wanted to be the one to be there to greet his kukla. He bugged us for 20 minutes to make sure he knew how to get there. He wanted drawn out maps and step-by-step directions. Keep in mind, it was only 15 minutes away. And what time did he leave for her 1 p.m. arrival? 12. He wanted to be sure to be there for her. Kim and Nicole, Dad could not have been more proud of both of you. Together, you were his everything. Dad was an emotional guy who would get choked up while watching Titanic, or the final scene when the Mighty Ducks win. So while I have no doubt that he's at peace, the one thing I know is Dad would not want to see us cry. He'd want us to celebrate his life and the wonderful memories made. Dad was never the man to look back. Whether it was a missed real estate deal or something personal, he always said what's done is done, and just look ahead at what is to come. As his kids, this is unbelievably difficult, but will carry on his memory through us and his grandchildren. While Dad loved and adored his children and grandchildren, it was his Yineka, my mom, to whom he credited everything. To him, everything she did was the best. He'd call me and say, "Your mother, she made the best chicken," or "the best mellow macaroni." She kept him in line, cared for him, and loved him better than he could have hoped. And he knew this. In their 46 years of marriage, Mom and Dad perfected the art of parties. Together, they were a great team and must have hosted hundreds of parties, holidays, and family dinners. The strength my mom has shown over the last week has been remarkable. She has and continues to be the heart of this family, and we will continue to rally behind her in the weeks, months, and years ahead. We could not have been more blessed to have the most wonderful parents in the world. Mom and Dad were having the best time in Greece. He was happy and was enjoying the trip more than ever. On his last day, Dad told Mom, "We have the best life. We're so blessed. The best kids, the best grandkids." He was right. Dad knew he had the best life and that he was blessed beyond measure. But it was us who had the best husband, father, and Papou we could have imagined. Dad always did things his way. From his unorthodox golf swing, to running his business, or walking into a restaurant, telling the chef how to prepare the meal. He always did things on his way, on his terms. He was never one for saying goodbye. Anyone who knew him knows that conversations on the phone would either end with, "Okay," click, or just being hung up on. And his immediate family knew all too well that Dad would just sometimes leave a party without saying goodbye to anyone. In fact, when Dad left Greece for the first time to come to the US, he didn't even tell his family he was leaving because he didn't like to say goodbye. So really, it's no wonder that he didn't send us off with a long and drawn-out goodbye. He would not have wanted it that way. It simply wasn't his style. There's something very poetic about the way things happened with my dad. He grew up in Greece and came here for a better life. He worked so hard and was the epitome of the American dream, running a successful business, raising a family with his wife, and was able to spend time with their grandchildren. He left this earth from his first home with his wife by his side, whom he adored most. To Dad, until we see you again, we hope you're looking down on us while you roast the lamb and prepare a tomato salad, all while you drink a glass of wine with ice cubes and have a paper towel hanging out of the back of your pocket. Zui Samas. Very well done.